Today's episode of Wine Time Fridays is brought to you in part by our friends at Revora, J. Bookwalter Wines, and 3D Cabinets by Design. They're back.
They're back. Nice.
It's been a long week, right? Are you ready to wind down? Why not? It's time for the Wine Time Fridays podcast with Shelley and Phil. Neither are sommeliers, but both have a deep passion for life, each other, and of course, delicious wine. And now, here to talk about this week over a glass of wine is Shelley and Phil. It's wine time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Wine Time Fridays with Shelley and Phil. And a guest. I'm out of breath and we haven't even started on this Friday, May 2nd, episode 263. It is May 2nd. Yeah.
I'm just looking.
Okay, happy Friday, Shelley. It's wine time.
Yay for May.
Yay for May. And rosé all day. Ooh, there's so many titles for this.
Doodah Day.
Doodah Day, that's right. We are kicking off Oregon Wine Month with a bang. We have got Clare Carver from Big Table Farm with us today as a guest. Clare, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. Welcome to Wine Time Fridays.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me, you guys. It's a pleasure to be here on this absolutely gorgeous spring day. You're out of breath because we're getting this really warm spring. That's why it's suddenly 70 degrees and beautiful. So, yeah.
Since we're recording this 2 weeks before it publishes, I don't know what those temps will be. However, today we just hit 60 degrees.
Oh, we're at 71 here. Ooh, that's a good sound. Wait, can I do it too? Because that'll be fun if we both do it. All right, here we go.
Harmonize on the next bottle.
We'll see how quick I can open a bottle of wine. There we go.
I like it. This is the best sound in the world.
Good job.
On any day of the week, but especially on Friday. Ooh, yes. Look, same label. We just opened the 2023 Big Table Farm Wild Bee Chardonnay, which was just released this spring. Am I correct?
Yep. Yes, sir. We release our spring wines on March 4th because it's the only day of the year that's a directive.
Directive?
Yeah, March 4th.
It is a directive.
I like it.
It's a really bad dad joke. You're welcome. Cheers.
No, you should have a call to action everywhere, right?
Oh, yes. To health, wealth, and abundance, gratitude, romance.
And peace on earth.
Did I say them all?
Mm-hmm.
Abundance. There we go.
Cheers.
Cheers it up. This is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry about dad jokes. I've cornered the market on those.
Yes, he has. That's really good.
This is so clean.
So Oregon Chardonnay. It's not warm climate. There's a Chardonnay producer that says making beautiful acid-driven Oregon wines is as easy as falling off a log. Because it's a cool climate and they don't get super ripe. They tend to be low alcohol. They're paler in color, and stylistically, you will find most Oregon Chardonnays have a lot of restraint in terms of the oak profile because it's delicate fruit with high acid. They're more Chablis-like in style, but they're decidedly Oregon. They are not Chablis. You still definitely get a warmth and a beauty in these wines. These are fermented in barrel. They are surly. We use batonnage, which for those of you who don't know what that silly French word means, it means the stirring of the lees, which are proteins that fall out of the wine during primary ferment in the barrel, and it changes the texture and the mouthfeel of the Chardonnay.
Yeah, it's really nice. I wonder if it has any resemblance to the Okanagan Chardonnays, because they're also cool.
Oh, yeah, they're very cool up there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm not as familiar with those wines, so I can't really speak to that. That would be more you guys because you've tasted more of those wines.
Yeah, and it's hard to be familiar with those because you pretty much have to go there to taste them. They are they're not able to send those wines down to the States, which is
Now
really
for sure.
Yeah, well, hopefully all this stuff gets worked out. We're just tired of the nonsense. But I can't wait till Canada actually, allows a little bit more distribution down to the States. I think their wine market would explode. With that said, Shelley, by the way, 12.9% alcohol on this.
Oh, wow.
It was something finally below a 13. So congratulations on that. We're big fans of that.
Of low alcohol. Yeah.
Well, we don't chapelize our wines, and chapelization, again, fancy French word, but it means either adding sugar or water, and you would add sugar to raise the alcohol and water to lower it, and we do neither of those things. We let the fruit that comes in take the lead, and we just make the wines that Mother Nature gives us. So
good for you guys.
Yeah.
I just did some research. We've lined up a pretty good lineup of Oregon wineries coming up. And I found out something. Shelley doesn't even know this yet. We're working with Andre Mack. If you know who Andre Mack is.
Oh, yes.
And
he's very dynamic. He'll be great.
We've been working on getting him for literally 2 years, but his assistant said because I said, I don't know if we can move this fast. We do have an opening at the very last of May, but we'd like to do Oregon wines if he's if he's familiar with or, enjoys any. And he says, yeah, let's do that. And then I started doing some research and found out he owns and is the winemaker of a wine there in Oregon. So how about that? Knock on wood on my head. That hurt, by the way. But in looking at some of that, doing that research, he said Oregon was not doing very decent shards, to your point, very super acidic, right?
Wait, you're telling me that Andre Mack said Oregon was not doing decent Chardonnays?
No, not now. No, this was like back in the day. So they brought in some clones from
California.
Burgundy. He said from Burgundy.
No.
So maybe I just misunderstood him.
Well, stories like the game of telephone can get mishmashed sometimes. A lot of the Pinot Noir clones came from Burgundy, but a lot of the early Chardonnay clones in Oregon came up from California, specifically the Wente clone, and they, it's a warm climate. And so you're bringing a warm climate Chardonnay into a cool climate, and these are... we need an early ripening Chardonnay, and the Chardonnay clone they brought up was a late ripening Chardonnay. And so, it just didn't do well, and they ripped it out and they planted Pinot Gris. So that being said, I've had a couple of really old Chardonnays, and some of them are pretty interesting wines. So, but I also I'll almost never kick a Chardonnay out of bed. It has to be made in a stainless steel tank with oak chips poured in and in a huge winery for me to be like, no. But a small production Chardonnay that's thoughtfully made, I will almost always, give some time to.
Claire is very funny. I would say no. I would say hell no. But that would be, if you're going to start throwing in chips and doing all that stuff,
that's where I draw the line. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. Yeah. No. For sure.
That's a hell no.
Oh my gosh. So, what role do you think that Oregon's unique terroir is playing in shaping the character of your wines?
That's an interesting question. I think Brian's history, my husband Brian, the winemaker, his history started in California. His first vintage was in 1996. He was a UC Davis fermentation sciences guy, and he made wines under Helen Turley, under Aaron Jordan, He was at Marquesan, then he was at Turley Wine Cellars, Nyers Vineyards, and then back with Helen again. So he had a 10-year stint making much headier, bigger, higher alcohol, riper reds and whites. And he came up to Oregon with this tool bag that was not suited to the cool climate. And we definitely made some wines in our early days that we don't want to have any association with anymore. Like we made a
But that,
Riesling, and a few of the vintages were good, but some of them were just bombs
yeah,
because he was making Riesling like Chardonnay. Um, and so yeah, it has created a really interesting sort of style that's uniquely big table. That sort of cutting his teeth in California, and obviously we've been here in Oregon for going on 20 years. Next year will be our 20th anniversary as a winery, and his wines are certainly Oregon wines. He's been here winemaking in Oregon a lot longer than California, but those early days were certainly formative. I think our wine style is unique here in Oregon in that we are 100% whole cluster. We are using natural winemaking techniques, so all wild yeast ferment, they're unfined and unfiltered. Everything is pisage in the winery, open top fermenters, not a lot of intervention. But the whole cluster and the riper style, I would say, reflect some of his formative years as a winemaker in California, where he loved that primary fruit characteristic. And that primary fruit characteristic translated up here into Oregon and is a really good foil for his 100% whole cluster winemaking. I don't know if I just answered the question that you asked, but that's where I went with
you
it.
did, and it sparked a piggyback question because you said whole
Mm.
cluster, and I was doing a little research on, and it's this research told me 100% foot treading.
That's pied. That was another French word she just used.
Right.
Yeah,
But
pisage.
so she speaks French.
No, I don't. I
have
just
trouble.
understand
I
French.
have trouble speaking or understanding English. But it's at 100% foot treading or trotting, and then it said whole cluster. I should grab that little pamphlet. Can you elaborate on that? Can you grab
Yeah.
me?
So the when it's 100% whole cluster, you have to use pisage in the beginning because the you have the rachis, the stems in the cluster, and it kind of sits like a mat on top of your open top fermenter. And you've probably seen stainless steel punch down
Right.
devices.
Right.
You can't use one of those. If you'd have to be the Incredible Hulk to make it work,
Well, it's hard enough
because you
work
have
as it is, and then you add insult to injury, right?
right. So you have
Yeah.
this mat, and the only way to get through that mat is with your body weight. And so it's not like I Love Lucy. You're not dancing around in the grapes. You're pushing your foot down and pushing the other foot down, and it actually takes a lot of Brian breaks a sweat when he does it. So not so much that he's sweating in the wine because that's gross. But it's yeah. You do triple sanitize his. He does triple sanitize his feet, and then he gets into every single fermenter. And I like to liken it to kneading bread. There's a certain
Yeah.
feel when you're kneading bread, and you have to know when to stop. And the pisage is the same. So you don't want to over extract or break up too many of the grapes because he's also getting a little bit of carbonic maceration from the unbroken berries. So there is too much pisage. So it's kind of like a bread kneading thing. It's just the right amount so that we break enough berries that we're getting the juice to skin contact in there,
Sure.
but leaving some berries unbroken so that you have a fermentation inside the unbroken berry. And so that's an oxygen free environment, right? So
Right.
that's creating carbonic maceration. in a natural form. Like a lot of people will create carbonic by putting plastic over your fermenter and then gassing it. And that gas sits on top of the fermentation and prevents oxygen from hitting your fermentation. But the natural way of that happening is just leaving unbroken berries.
And how deep is that when he goes in there? Like up to the knees or?
No, he will go all the way to like mid-thigh to the bottom of the fermenter. I mean, it's the regular, 1 ton
He's
fermenters.
wearing
So
waders.
Wow, yeah.
no, he just goes in his boxers. It's kind of sexy.
That's very cute.
He's got very nice thighs and a really cute ass. That's always
Well,
been
and he probably
something I've
doesn't.
enjoyed.
He does.
And
It's
purple
like
legs.
and purple legs. So you're like, honey,
And
so
purple legs.
when are you going to go out and play in the whole clusters? I was thinking about 15 minutes from now. Great. I have a break then. I'll go out and watch. I'll cheer you on.
Yeah, right.
That's so funny. We should open up. I feel like we're laughing a lot, and I'm kind of a pig, so maybe we should open up a laughing pig rosé. You see what I did
I
there?
like it. I like it.
I'm
It
gonna
was
put that
almost a dad joke.
Oh, look!
That's close.
Don't get me started. I sent a dad joke to my daughter and her husband every day, and then they'd score them.
Okay, wait. We got to do it. Right.
I'm
Have you
not ready yet.
plunged yet? Have you plunged?
Yes, we're plunging now.
Okay.
Okay.
1, 2.
Tell me when.
1, 2, 3, go. Nice job, buddy.
This is the best. Okay. And Shelley, I did not pour you that much.
Here you go.
God, this is so good. By the way, that Wild Bee Chardonnay is $34 at the winery.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good price.
And we're going to kind of do a little deeper dive into this rosé because I am pouring the 2023 Laughing Pig Rosé. We had the 2022 Laughing Pig Rosé with Karen McNeil last year.
Yeah.
So gaze upon that and know you cannot
have it.
It's gone.
But gaze upon this and know that you can.
Right. That's right. Let's do a quick toast on this. Hashtag cheersing.
Cheersing.
Cheers.
And I want to talk about the artwork before we get too far because I have a funny feeling very, very intimately who does the artwork on these labels.
Yeah. So yeah, I do all the line drawings on our wine, and the drawings are different every year. Actually, the Laughing Pig is not. It's always the same drawing. But the next one we're going to taste is going to be the Willamette Valley, and that's Laverne and Shirley. And you can see there's another pig on my shirt and on that card that you had, Phil.
Yeah, but it's the same artwork, right?
It's the same artwork. And
so let's see if we can do a trifecta here.
It's a different pig. Yeah.
Oh.
So every year I draw. There we go. Every year I draw the pigs that I raised that year on the farm. So you can count on the Willamette Valley being new pigs every year, new drawings of pigs, and it's just fun. The rosé drawing was actually a drawing I did when Brian and I went to Ireland. God, 24 years ago, I think. And I convinced him to go out to see some ruins, but really I wanted to see the petting zoo farm across the street. So we went to see the ruins, and he's like, I know you don't want to see the ruins. You want to go over to that farm. I'm like, yes, I do. So we went over to this farm, and he had all these piglets in this stall. And I literally said to the farmer, I was like, can I just go in with the pigs? He's like, if you want. So I went into the pigs, and I was like scratching them. And this little pig I was scratching him, and he made that face in that drawing. And Brian snapped a little picture of it. And that's where that drawing came from. So
this one right here on the 23.
That exact one. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So the original of that drawing is in my kitchen. And there's a second part to that story when we bought our first house in downtown Napa, which was this like falling off the foundation fixer.
Mm,
I
great.
did a little drawing of that sketch, and it said, "Welcome to the Laughing Pig Kitchen," and that was what I named our kitchen because you have to name your kitchen, right? And then I said to Brian at that point, so this is 2001, I think. I said, if we ever manage to start our own wine brand and really chase our dreams, and you make a rosé, I want to call it the Laughing Pig. And fast forward 2007 vintage. The sixth vintage was our first vintage as Big Table Farm. 2007 was our first Pinot Noir vintage. And this is an important story because it's why our rosé is made how it is. So listen carefully.
Ah,
So,
all
so
ears.
2007 vintage, super cool vintage in Oregon. And you heard me say earlier that Brian, California guy coming up to Oregon, like wines that are super underripe, low alcohol, high in acid, totally new territory for him. So this Pinot Noir comes onto the crush pad, and he says to me, I don't think I can make great Pinot Noir out of this fruit. So I would like your permission to make it all into rosé. And I was like, dude,
Wow.
you're the winemaker. If you make the best wine you can, I will figure out how to sell it. So he took this Pinot Noir fruit and made it 100% into rosé. That is very different from your pale porch pounder Signet rosé. That rosé is a lot cheaper than my rosé because it's a byproduct of making a more concentrated red wine. We take fruit that we could just as easily make into a $50, $70 Pinot Noir, and we only make it into rosé. So what we do is we bring that fruit in, we ferment it on the skins. It is 100% whole cluster. And when we get to the perfect level of skin contact and extraction of color, tannin, and aromatic, we just press it sooner than you would if it was Pinot Noir. So, a $36 bottle of rosé is very expensive. And that's because this is a rosé that you can cellar. This rosé is not a byproduct of Pinot Noir, which your regular Signet, what they'll do is they will bleed off some of the juice so that your juice to skin ratio in your Pinot Noir is more concentrated, aka you have less juice, more skins, darker Pinot Noir. And then
Right.
you take that juice that you pulled off and you make it into rosé, which is why rosé is cheap. It's why rosé is often left with residual sugar because it doesn't have the body, it doesn't have tannin, it doesn't have high fruit contact. It needs a little residual sugar because there's not a lot there.
Mm,
Um, there are some beautiful Signet rosés, but for the most part, they're lighter bodied. This by the color alone, that if you looked at this and you didn't know it was a Pinot Noir rosé, and all I told you was that it was rosé, you would assume it was rosé of Syrah or Merlot or something because it's such a dark color. But the
right.
dark color is because it's a full skin contact process and it's
How
not
many?
a Signet. So
How,
that's why
how
you
long?
can drink a 23 and I can drink a 24. And I bet yours is better than mine because it's
Oh,
had a year
interesting.
for those tannins to settle and soften and become silky. So there you
How
go.
long? How
Uh,
long does it stay on the skin? I know that it changes because you're going off a lot of different variables, but typically, well,
Usually, well, we'll do a cold soak, and then it's usually the full fermentation. 5 days. If it hasn't gone dry, we'll pull it off the skin so it doesn't turn into Pinot Noir. So we do pull it off
right,
before it's totally dry, and then we'll put that juice back into that same fermenter and let it go completely dry. So I'm sorry, I said full fermentation. It does. We don't. It, if you let it go dry, it'll be Pinot Noir. So
right,
we just
right.
pull it off early and then the juice goes back in.
Well, that was very brave of him to try that. I think.
Yeah,
In
because
2007. Yeah.
Yeah.
sure.
And honestly, I was selling that wine in 2008 And I remember, and I was brand new at owning a business as selling wine, and it was really scary and hard. And I went into this wine shop in Portland and I brought my rosé. I was really proud of it. And the guy was like, that rosé is I think it was $28 or something, yeah, which is very expensive, especially in 2008. And he
Yeah.
was like, that wine's too expensive. Look at all these rosés I have from France that are, $12 a bottle. And he was just really mean. And I was really upset because I was scared and I was, it was hard. And and I and I looked at him and I was holding my bottle and he was clearly not going to buy this wine, but I was not going to take his shit. And I was like, "Listen, I came all the way here. I made an appointment and I want you to just taste this wine." And
Oh,
he was like,
great job.
"Okay." Okay. So he put out the glasses and I poured the wine and I was like, "Okay, we're done." And I put the cork in and I went out to my car and I cried.
Wow.
But the thing is, he called me for years after asking for that wine, and I always said no.
Oh
I was
my
like,
God,
no,
that's awesome.
no,
There's some
no.
principle.
I am never selling you my wine. I wouldn't sell him any of my wines because he was mean, and you shouldn't be mean.
That's what you get.
That's what you get.
Actually
Meh.
really love that because it kind of goes back to this story about Ed McMahon. I have to share it. He got off a flight. He was flying first class, and the flight attendant said to him, "Mr. McMahon, I want to thank you. You by far we have a lot of celebrities that fly first class, and you are by far the nicest celebrity we've ever had." And he said,
Aw.
"That's great to hear. But, my mom told me years ago, you can be nice to someone or you can not be nice to someone. And why would you not be nice to someone?" It seems so simple, but in this day and age, it seems to be more fleeting, and I don't understand it. Makes me crazy.
Let's bring back civility, shall we?
I'm all for that. I am all for that.
Is Lucy inside?
Lucy's inside. She's being really good because you told her to be good. We have good. Claire on, and Claire's not going to put up with Lucy's skullduggery.
Is this your dog?
The little pup, yeah, little punk.
Okay, this is this is a podcast no, but I have to do this. So, do you see
Levi?
Can you see him over there?
Sleeping. Yeah.
On the dog bed? He is so cute. He hasn't moved in like an hour and a half. He is 14 and a half, so he's an old man.
You do see him breathing, right?
Yes. In fact, I can hear him snoring.
Way too long of a pause.
And in another, I was honestly checking.
There you go.
And in another minute or two, I'm sure he's going to cut a ripper of a fart because he does that all the time because he's an old man, and that's what old men do. They fart.
Well, we know what's going on the front end of this episode, don't we? Oh, we're gonna have some nuggets. Hey, since we're talking about animals, how many animals are on your farm? Different types as well as total. And I'm guessing I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you name them?
I do. Yes.
Got a girl.
How much time do you have for me to tell you how many animals? No, I'm joking.
General types of animals, and then kind of how many.
So let's start. So I have a team of draft horses. I have cattle. I have sheep. I have goats. I have a hound dog. I have 2 farm cats, beehives, chickens for eggs, and then meat chickens. And those are 2 different breeds, and they're totally different.
People don't get that, do they? They do not get that.
What's that?
They're like, well, people don't get that about the chickens. We have a couple of chickens. We're looking for more, but we have 2. And they're like, well, when they get too old, you just kill them and eat them. I'm like, nope, you don't. Because first of all, I'm not going to do that to our pets. But number 2, these are not meat chickens. So
yeah, they're not meat chickens, but they would actually make excellent stewing hens. So if you, I'm sure you won't because they're your pets, but But if you were going to kill them, they would be delicious as stock. Because when yeah, anyway, yes.
Well,
But
hopefully the
you're right.
neighbors.
You wouldn't eat them like a broiled or roasted chicken. That wouldn't be a thing.
Well, good, and that's what
Um,
I'm going
and
with.
pigs. Did I mention pigs? I think I
Pigs.
forgot the pigs.
Well, that's
Um,
kind of a given.
so yeah. So
And you have,
it's a menagerie around here for sure.
I love
So
that.
in terms of numbers, currently I have 14 cows, but I'm about to have six more babies.
Oh,
So
wow.
that'll be 14 plus six is 20. Um, and then sheep, we just finished lambing. I have actually one more lamb due, so that's 10 plus 8 plus 9, 10. So 20 sheep. Um, and I'm still growing the flock. I think next year I'm going to cap it at about 35 or 38 or 40, somewhere in there. And then I'll just be slaughtering more and not keeping as many for rebreeding. And the sheep's job is to graze the vineyard.
Right,
Um,
right. And they do a great
and
job of that, don't they?
they do, yeah.
It's
And
the,
then the goats, I bring in the spring. I get babies from a farmer down the road. I get six of them, and they are not in the vineyard. They're in like the forest and headland area where I need understory management, like blackberries and things. And goat meat, young goat meat, is exquisite. Like a lot of people have had older goat, like slow roasted or braised like in a lot of ethnic food, but goat chops and ground goat and from a goat that's under 10 months old is I prefer it to lamb.
mm,
I've
It
never had
has
that.
it's so good. I like if you're gonna make a burger for me out of my freezer, I'll pick goat first, lamb second, and beef third. Um,
interesting.
Wow.
yeah, I just goat is delicious. So anyway, the goats, the pigs. So I get them as baby pigs in the spring, and I slaughter them when I slaughter sheep and goats in late November, early December. It's usually sometime around after Thanksgiving and before my birthday. Is when we do the winter slaughter, and the cows are slaughtered when the meat chickens are slaughtered in the summer when the grass is at its blaze growth. And then the honeybees. I currently have three beehives.
Nice.
And if I catch a swarm, I usually catch at least this past year I caught two swarms. So I'm hopeful that I'll catch at least one swarm, and then I'll have four beehives. So definitely have some nice honey,
Did you
and
have
my
any
husband keeps the
trouble?
garden.
Did you have any trouble with
But
your bees this past season?
I've been keeping bees now since 2009, and I lose hives all the time. And
Yeah,
I don't even live in an urban area where they'd be exposed to pesticides or herbicide
right.
because we don't use any because we're organic. But
Right.
um, yeah, bees are, I don't know, they die. The
Yeah.
hives, there's all different reasons. There's mite pressure, there's temperature, I mean, they're just, which is why they make forms and make more so readily because
Right.
the loss rate on bees is quite high. A lot of the loss rate that you hear about in the news is commercial beekeepers, and their loss rate is very high. Those bees are moved around a lot. They are exposed to lots of different environments that potentially have herbicides and pesticides. It's really stressful for a bee to move it because now they have to reorient to a new place every time. And you moved them, and moving is stressful. As humans, we
Mm,
know that. Like you
sure.
pick up your
Yeah, yeah.
house and you move it, it's traumatic.
It is.
So those bees are actually under a lot of stress. And so the loss rate is very high. So those commercial keepers are constantly cultivating new, what they're called nukes, which are like, yeah, like a new hive. They're breeding for new hive development every season because their hives tend not to live very long because they're under a lot of stress. So
Do you
Um,
yeah.
have do you have a problem with mites there for your bees? Because we have
Mm.
mites here.
Everyone has mites.
Oh, okay.
They're very common. And I do use an organic certified treatment for mites, but you do what you do, and
Right.
Yeah.
you Mother Nature's gonna do her thing. So
Pretty
yeah. Do
much.
you keep
Yeah.
bees?
We have
Our
a
neighbor
Shelley,
neighbor.
do
does.
you? Ah, okay.
Yeah, our neighbor
Yeah.
If
does.
I
Yeah.
had if I had my choice, we would. But we live on a
Mm-hmm.
golf course, and I'm
Mm,
guessing they do something to keep yellow jackets down, which would then keep bees down. And I don't. It seemed like it would be fighting with them.
Hmm.
But I would
yeah.
love to raise bees.
I doubt your golf course is using organic practices.
Oh, I'm
No,
pretty sure they're
they're
not.
not. No.
Yeah.
No.
So how
So
So
many?
it would
so
be
it wouldn't be kind to the bees to bring them
No,
into
no,
that
no, no,
environment.
not at all. So
No.
a couple things. How many acres are you on, and do you have running water? Because I know bees really need that. That they don't like still water.
Yeah.
no.
So we are
Yeah.
on go ahead, Shelley, what?
I was just going to say they like shallow water if they can find that. We used to have a bubble rock where the
Uh-huh.
water would come out the top, and somebody in our neighborhood was keeping bees because we'd have a bee
We'd
line
have a bee line
from the bubble rock back to their place.
because they only had
Oh,
a
how
little
fun.
pool. Yeah, they just had a little pool, and the bees are like, "Screw that! I'm going to go take water from the neighbors." And we had to continually add water. Our UPS and FedEx driver stopped even delivering to the front because he kept getting pelted in the head with the bees. So it just
Oh, he
went
was
around
in
that.
the zone.
He was in the
Oh, that's
zone. Yeah,
awesome.
it is
That's
awesome.
awesome. So yeah, I'm on 70 acres, and
Ah,
we
there you
have
go.
um, a lot of natural springs on the farm. We have a 2.2 million gallon pond that
Mm.
is
Ah,
fed from the natural springs. Um, and we basically, I mean, there's water running off of our property all year long.
Oh,
So
good.
there's plenty of running water.
Love that.
And that same water from the springs, the building I'm standing in is my art studio, and it is 100% off grid. It's all solar. The electricity is all solar. There's a battery pack up in the loft, and then that same spring gravity feeds the water here to my studio because there's a shower and
Mm-hmm.
sink and
oh, that's cool.
Well,
toilet.
good for you guys, man. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And when I was setting this up with Claire, I got a hold of her. I believe it was on a Monday, and you gracefully asked if we could talk at another day because this is your day of creativity. Am I
Yeah.
right? It was Monday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm
Monday is
like,
my painting day.
and I'm
Yeah.
like,
And like
well,
my staff does not bug me on Mondays because I will rip their face off. I'll be like, why are you asking me questions on a Monday?
well,
Anyway.
Shelley's
So yeah.
It's
creative day
also
is also
Monday.
Monday. So I
Ah.
know because if I'm like Shelley, they want to record on a Monday and there's no other day. What should I tell them?
No Mondays.
If you
I was
take a Monday, you have to give her like 2 more days and like
No,
make her dinner and
I'm gonna give her as
do.
many days as she wants. I'm just like I'm all they're given. With that
Mhm.
I was
said,
looking at your artwork. See, you talk over me.
I
He
well,
calls me timid, but he talks over me all the time. I was looking at your artwork, and I loved the clothespin line. Uh, Those are
Oh, thank
so
you.
cool.
Thank you.
I love
Yeah,
old
they've been really
clothespin.
fun.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
so
I
much
just did.
detail in those.
Let me see let's see. There's a few right here hanging. Can you see them
Oh,
there?
okay.
Let
Only
me get
the
closer.
outlines.
see, this is why you have to
Ah,
watch
see,
the YouTube channel, guys. Then you get to
that's
see
so
Yeah.
that. This
cool.
is
Those are
awesome.
great.
Yeah. So those are a few of them. I've done 80
Oh wow.
three so far. There's some more there on the table. These are a bunch that are sold. I just did a show here with our rosé release party, which was fabulous. Um, and I sold a ton of art. But the clothespins are a daily practice, and it was just something I actually did like 20 years ago. I did a series of clothespins, and I wanted to revisit that, and so I do a clothespin every day. There's one behind me that I just did yesterday. I haven't done mine for today yet.
Nothing.
Yeah, it's just a good way to get into the studio every day.
I love
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
My mom was a painter. I can't paint anything, but she painted up till she was 97.
Is that one of her paintings behind you?
No, that's
This
a watercolor.
that is not, but
Mhm.
this one,
The party girl.
the party
over there
girl.
is one of her.
Oh, fun.
It's hard to see.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like such a podcast video no to move your computer around, but who cares?
This is Wine Time Fridays. It's our podcast. We'll do as we like.
There you go. There you go.
All right. We
And-
should move on.
Well, we're trying to take a little break here.
Okay.
So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to sift from the white and the pink to the red when we come back.
Nice. Welcome back to Wine Time Fridays. On this episode 263, we are talking to Claire from Big Table Farm up in Oregon. And this is May 2nd when we're publishing. Everyone knows we
Thanks
don't
for having me.
record the same day.
Shelley is such an honest person. She has to throw that disclaimer in there. It's only 2 weeks in advance. I mean, come on. Are we ready to open that Willamette Pinot Noir, Claire?
Yeah. I'm ready. I actually already have it, so I'll just pull the cork with you.
What the?
All right.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, it wasn't nearly as satisfying. I'm sorry.
That was so anticlimactic.
It was like a
Oh.
fruit that you didn't stomp on.
Right?
Oh.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
Oh, no. We've just had the 2023 Big Table Farm Wild Bee Chardonnay, $34 at the winery. And we had the 2023 Laughing Pig Rosé on our end. Claire had the 24. What is the retail on that, Claire? Did you say about 36?
36. Mhm.
36. We just opened a 2023 Big Table Farm Willamette Valley Pinot Noir. Oh, I'm going to pour it before I put the cork back in. $50 at the winery. And
So 100% whole cluster. And this is a cuvee of Pinot Noir. It's all the Pinot barrels. After we choose the ones that go into our single AVA select or barrel select single vineyard wines, all the remaining barrels go into this wine. So we make about 2,300, 2,500 cases of this wine, depending on the vintage. And then we have a whole bunch of single vineyards and barrel selects that are in the 100 to 200 case production quantity. The nice thing about this wine is you can find it all over the country. So I'm distributed in about 30 markets, and those markets sell this wine at all the, fine wine retailers that are in your backyard. So no matter where you're listening to this, you can probably grab a bottle of this. If you're not quite ready to commit to buying 6 or 12 direct from the winery, you can get a bottle and give it a try. And when you fall in love with it, you'll come back to me and say, hey, I want those special wines, which are only winery direct. So this is the only Pinot that we make that you can get at retail. And the other ones, are only available for sale direct from the winery.
The color on this is gorgeous.
Yeah, it is.
And am I completely delusional? Am I getting a little something, just a little smoky on this, on the nose? Oh. Mm.
I tend to avoid calling any wine smoky anymore because I have PTSD from 2020.
Yeah, good point.
Because the smoke taint was just so awful that year. But I tend to replace that word with meaty, bacony,
Hard to go
but
wrong with
that's just
bacon.
me.
Not
Because
cigarette-y.
I'll start twitching if you use the S word around me. So
Well, and those were tough years, weren't there? A tough year. I mean, down in California, they had kind of a string of a few of them, but so you
yes,
had years where you had the fires all around you. You weren't able to even pick, or you did pick, and then you tasted the smoke taint.
we picked everything. We brought it
Oh,
all into the winery, and then we started selectively tasting and dumping.
yeah,
And then we didn't make any of our upper tier wines. We made about less than half as much Pinot Noir as we normally make, and we
ah,
blended everything that was passable down into the Willamette Valley. So we only released this wine. We didn't release all the upper tier wines.
got it.
And yeah, we lost half our revenue that year
Jeez,
because we paid all of our farmers in full,
right? Yeah,
because we value those relationships and we took care of them,
yeah,
and we basically took it on the chin. So yeah, it sucked,
it
but
does. Yeah.
um, it it's what separates the men from the boys,
Hmm.
and then we valued our grower relationships, and that's still paying us forward now. So
Oh, for sure. The dividends on that moving forward in the future is fantastic because the relationships are strengthened and the credibility is there as well. So,
yeah. And our customers, we were totally transparent with all of our customers. We're like, this is the wine, don't cellar it. We stand behind this wine right now, but we don't know what this vintage is going to do. So, we were totally upfront in our newsletter, and with all of our distributors, I sent the wines to them ahead of time so they could taste them. And I was
oh,
like,
good.
I don't want you to buy it if you don't like it. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
That's
high
Anyway,
okay.
character. I love that. This is very, very good. I just
This-
feel like we should have salmon tonight.
Again.
Again, we just had a couple nights ago, but I mean,
who's cooking tonight?
It's mostly always me.
mostly.
Ah, got
Mostly.
it.
We're
Yeah.
having
And
ribeye.
Oh, ribeye tonight. Oh, that's good.
ooh, this would be good with ribeye.
I think
This
you would
this
stand.
notion that you have to have a big Cabernet if you're having steak. I mean, granted, the steaks that I have are all grass fed, which I think have a unique, wonderful pairing with Pinot
Yeah,
Noir. I
yeah,
prefer grass fed beef with Pinot Noir. And
right.
if I have a really fatty conventional beef, I do tend to go for a more tannic wine because of
Yeah,
the
The
high
fat.
fat
Mhm.
content
yeah,
in
for
those
sure.
beefs. But yeah, Pinot and beef is beautiful.
We've kind of gotten away from this a little bit. I mean, unless there's some big surprise on what you would pair with that Chardonnay and the rosé, and then this Pinot, we've kind of touched on that a little bit. Are there any surprises on what you'd pair with the first three wines that we've had
Yes.
tonight?
Yeah, the rosé.
Yeah,
Because what you would normally pair with a Signé rosé is absolutely not what you would pair with this wine. Because this wine is fermented on 100% whole cluster fruit, it has a lot of tannin, but it also has this really bright, in your face, juicy Jolly Rancher kind of fruit that is absolutely stunning with spicy food. So any kind of like, I love it with barbecue ribs or hot wings. I like it. I did a winemaker dinner and they had some little starter that had jalapeno on it, which normally you would never pair jalapenos with wine. But because this wine has this like luscious fruit character that like juicy strawberry fruit with that spice from a pepper is a really wonderful pairing. And yeah, like I said, normally you wouldn't do that with a Signé rosé, but with the skin contact rosé. And Brian and I last night sat, and in the spring we often will do, we call it a snack board, where it's just pesto and salami and
it's a great
charcuterie and
idea.
just whatever comes out of the fridge, and we know it's cooked, so we just put it out and drink. And rosé is usually the wine that goes with that board because there's a large variety of things, and this
Sure.
rosé is really mutable in that way.
I think it
So.
would go really well with a bacon wrapped jalapeno with a raspberry sauce inside.
Yes. Oh my
Yes.
God. Why would you say that now? I'm starving. Jeez. She makes the
I think
best.
you.
She makes the best raspberry sauce. Like,
Oh.
and you would put it on pork sometimes, right? Do I always get that wrong? No, we put.
No, that's a fig sauce.
Okay.
With the
But either
herb de
or.
Provence.
Yeah. Would this just go? It would be
I don't know
nails.
if it would be good with that. With the herb de Provence.
Well, the raspberry sauce that you do is freaking awesome. And I'm not wrong
We'll
about
see
that.
this. So I wanted to ask you about the biochar project.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what biochar is. So
That should have been our wine words of the week.
Could you tell us about that?
Yeah. So when we cleared, and for listeners, there's two really beautiful videos, which you probably saw, Shelley, on the front page of our website. And one tells our origin story, and the other tells the biochar story. And the biochar was, and this was one of your questions, Phil. You said, because in my statement that I gave you, I said we've made all these micro decisions over the years that lead us to the regenerative farm today that we live on. And the biochar is an example of one of those micro decisions. It was kind of a big deal, but it was when we cleared the brush to plant the vineyard. What most people do when you do what's called an ag conversion on land, you transition a piece of land from making cherries to making avocados or whatever. You rip all that out and you put it in a big slash pile and you burn it. That is a smoldery, dirty, somewhat low temperature burn that is making all kinds of CO2 and particulates that go up into the atmosphere. It is damaging to our atmosphere to do open burns in this way. We still do it. We do it for understory management here in Oregon in our forests. There's lots of places where burning is used as part of agriculture, but there will be a day in the future where people will look back and go, oh my God, I can't believe people did that back in the 2000s. And so when we did our clearing, Brian said, I don't want to do an open burn. I was like, what do you want to do then? He said, I don't know. I'm like, super, that's really helpful.
Really
and
helpful.
then really helpful. But he had actually done a lot of backyard experimentation with making biochar on a very small scale. So I started researching this. There are these small scale kilns you can use, but you certainly could not do that for the scale of the project for 13 acres of clearing.
Sure.
So again, I started doing a bunch of research and I found a piece of equipment from the wood recycling business where they carbonized scrap wood and foam poles and things from construction waste, because you can't put that wood in landfills. And so what they do is they do super high temperature burns so that it doesn't create all of this particulates and carcinogenics into the atmosphere. So I said, this machine could work for what I want to do. So we brought this machine across the country from, I think it was in Indiana. And that was no small feat because it's huge. And we brought it out to the farm and we did the first large scale ag conversion in the country with biochar. So we took those burn piles and we put them into these giant kilns and we did super high temperature burns. And then what it does is it's got an air curtain, so it recirculates the smoke back in so it doesn't go into the atmosphere.
Right.
And then we added our own special sauce, which was to quench the fire at a pivotal time so that it makes this, looks like charcoal, but it's called biochar. And the biochar has more surface area than charcoal. And then it becomes an additive to your compost, and it basically supercharges your compost. It doesn't have properties in and of itself that are nutrient rich. But what it does is it acts like a sponge. So you put it into your compost and it basically draws in all of the wonderful properties in your compost and holds on to it. Because often when you have compost, you throw it, you broadcast it over your soil or in your vineyard. But then what happens is the sun hits it and you lose like half your nutrients and your microbiology in your compost because it volatilizes it. That's the wrong word, but
Well,
the sun
the
hits it and
UV
goes away.
rays will just eat it up. Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so the biochar holds on to that. It also increases the water holding capacity of your soil because it acts like a little sponge. So it's a wonderful product, and it's a way to do high temperature burn of waste on our property without polluting our 5 miles of atmosphere that's very fragile, and gives us a product as well. So there you go. Sorry, that was a really long answer, but
That's
No,
awesome, though.
it is fantastic. And I feel like this would be a perfect time to do the CDA Gourmet Wine Words of the Week, because we just brought up the regenerative practices, which is all over your website and all of your literature. And I've got down regenerative practices, easy for me to say, in winemaking refers to farming and production methods that prioritize the soil health, the biodiversity, and the ecosystem balance. That's a very short definition for that. I would love to hear Claire, you explain why is that so important to you guys there at Big Table Farm?
yeah, it's interesting because if my husband was here and you asked him that question, he would say, "I hate that word regenerative." So he and I actually don't really agree on the use of that word, but I'm in charge of sales and marketing, so fuck that. I'm going to say it if I want. He doesn't believe in that word because uh, farming by its
Very,
intrinsically is
yeah,
extractive.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, we as humans are extractive, right?
right.
And so this idea of regenerating the earth while we're using it is
Mm,
honestly an oxymoron. Which is why he grates on the use of that word so much. He feels like it's greenwashing. Now, is it? No. Is it important to put language and words around practices so people can understand them and get behind them? Absolutely.
sure.
And that's
Yeah.
why I do use the word regenerative. And regenerative practices are not tilling. They're not using herbicides and pesticides, which is like a no-brainer. But the
Right.
not tilling is really important to regenerative farming because when you till, you turn the soil over and you destroy the microbiome that is living within your soil because you expose it to air. So the not tilling is sort of a mainstay of the regenerative practice ethos, if you
Yeah.
will. Rotational grazing, which we have been practicing here at Big Table for
Mm,
20 years, which is moving animals on and off land in a
right.
way that creates healthy pastures, but also healthy animals. So
Right.
because I move my animals, I move my sheep. They're never in the same spot for more than 15 days. And because of that, you break the parasite cycle. So now I don't have to use ivermectin and anti-worm medicine for my animals because I break the parasite cycle because I move them off that pasture and then those parasites will die. Without the animals there moving the parasites through their gut, they won't continue to live. So I also do that by putting different species and different places on my farm. So if you're doing set stock grazing, which is where you just put all the animals in one place and you leave them there until all the grass is gone, it's very destructive to both your pasture and your animals' health.
Mm,
So there are some wonderful benefits to regenerative farming for the long-term use of your land as well as the health of your animals. And Brian and I do sell beef and pork and lamb and goat, but we also eat it ourselves. And
Sure.
we don't want anything in our food that we're eating. And we were just up in the vineyard yesterday talking to our vineyard manager about the roller crimper and what we're doing. And he we were talking about the fact that we don't use herbicide, which is weed control, Roundup. And Brian's like, I don't want that shit where I live, and I certainly don't want to expose the people who are working for us to that
Right.
chemical. So it's and we I already talked about our natural springs. We have so much water running off of our hillside that would be going right into our watershed.
Exactly.
So there,
Exactly.
I absolutely, yeah, it's for all those reasons. It's out of respect for this place I live on. And we don't have kids. Our legacy is our environmental impact that we leave behind.
That's
So
wonderful.
It's fantastic, and it's so anti. I had the word a minute ago.
It's gone.
It is gone. But old school, we always tilled our gardens.
right.
Counterintuitive. There we go. And
Yeah.
I think we only heard about this a year or two ago about not tilling. And I thought it's hard for me
we don't have a big garden.
No. But I mean, still, it's
mostly in pots, but still.
It is still in pots.
We have too many big trees.
It's to me, it's something I have to plow through my belief, because it was always, you wanted to till the ground and add a little, manure, or, we have alpaca,
Nitrogen,
here, all of that stuff. Right.
Yeah.
But when you hear why you don't till it, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. But I mean, sometimes you have to do something to that soil, or you're not going to plant. Right. So, I mean, how do you this is like farming 101 today. This is so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to disturb the soil to put your plant in the ground.
Sure.
And also, if you have to control weeds, and you control weeds mechanically, you control weeds with chemicals, or you can control weeds by creating, a lack of light, right? By
covering it up.
Oh yeah,
covering it up. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, we cover
And
whatever.
you can cover it up in lots of different ways. You can plant a cover crop that outcompetes it, and then you can make a mat out of that cover crop. If you have sheep and you can train them to not eat the plant like the grapevine, then they will eat the weeds and the competing grass and legumes that are around your plant. In your vegetable garden, you can use cardboard, or you can get on your hands and knees and weed, which kind of sucks, but it's good for you.
It's not good for you. It's bad for your back and knees. Can you train chickens to stay out of your rose garden?
No, you mean out of the tulips.
Out of the tulips?
Yeah.
Shelley's not real happy about that.
We need to get to some of these.
Okay, well, we're going to get to those questions right after this break. Ready this time. Claire has disappeared. Where has she gone?
Sorry, here I am.
Hello and welcome back to Wine Time Fridays, episode 263 on this first Friday of May, which ironically is the first Friday of Oregon Wine Month, which there are 5 of this month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Claire and I have been having this little harmony of cork popping. Claire, why don't you go first this time?
Okay, here we go. Here's the Syrah.
Whoa, I think you just broke the wine thing.
Wow, you really put your corks in. Holy moly.
Your cork pull was much better than mine.
I do like the pop.
So yeah, this is so this is the Syrah from the Rocks district. It's a sub-AVA of the Walla Walla. And that's a really old grapevine there on the drawing. Cheers to you both.
Boy,
thank you.
She works so fast over there.
Cheers.
Hashtag cheersing.
Cheers. Mm.
On episode 202, we had Jared Funk on as a guest from Savaya Cellars, Richard Funk's son, who is doing a lot more at the winery there. But we had the 2020, the Funk Estate Cabernet Sauvignon from Savaya.
They're
This
such a
is
great
the
family, and they
They're
have
so
beautiful
great.
fruit, and we're really lucky to get this
Oh,
this
boy.
gorgeous fruit from them. So
100%.
Syrah, huh? From a
14
Pinot
proof.
producer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why?
I think if you
That's a
can,
great
why not?
question.
Why not?
Yeah, right. Because we love Syrah, and Brian's made Syrah throughout his career. He's made Syrah from 7 different regions. So early in our dating life, about 6 months after we met, we went down to South Australia, and he made Syrah there because he did a vintage, a double vintage year in the Barossa. And then he made Syrah from Carneros, from Napa, from Sonoma. When we first moved up to Oregon, we bought fruit from Maggie Harrison from the White Hawk Vineyard, which is Santa Rita Hills. And then we moved away from that in the 11 vintage, and then we made wine, a Syrah from Southern Oregon for a couple years, and then we finally were able to secure fruit from the Rocks, which was a sort of fascinating sub AVA to Brian and I. And we were really excited that Rich was willing to work with us and sell us some of his really beautiful Funk Estate fruit. And we
very sought
started
after.
working with that. Yeah, very sought after. 2016 was our first vintage with the Funk Estate. And do you have the 21? Is that what you're drinking?
We have the
No,
22.
22.
Yep. This
22.
is also
Okay.
just released this spring too, correct?
Yeah, so that's current release. Yep, that's what we just released. So that's what I'm drinking as well. I should have known that because that's I know that label anyway.
So
The
I am not
clanky
going to
label.
call this any S word, any bad word, but I will say this is dirty. I'm getting a little dirty on this.
Really?
This is just a little dirty.
No,
I like the
kind
dirty.
of light. Lucy, what?
The way I like to describe this wine is a little bit of raw meat, black olives, tapenade. The tapenade characteristic is quite strong in this wine. And that's really classic for this. Oh my God. Oh, look at that dog. What is that?
Schnauzer.
Everyone
I love schnauzers.
They're the smartest dogs in the world, except for this one knows it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. What's her name?
Lucy. This is Lucy.
Lucy Lou.
Lucy. Oh my God. She is
She made
so
an appearance
cute.
2 weeks ago too. I think she's become camera hog.
Oh my God. Look
What
at
she
her.
does. So at the time of this recording,
she wants dinner. That's why she's
exactly what
getting
it is.
on you.
So
she's like, "Hey, it's dinner time, you people."
At the time of this recording right now, it's 5:40, and generally Lucy will come up and tap at 5:01. It doesn't even matter when it went to daylight savings time. Her mind changed, and she'll tap on Shelley's leg, and Shelley's like, "No, I'm in the middle of something." She's like, "Huh," and she runs downstairs, and I can tell the run down the stairs. I'm like, here comes Lucy. She's gonna say, "Time for dinner."
All right, okay, well, this very clearly, my dog is
puppy.
He doesn't care. He's like, whatever. I'm just gonna go back to sleep. Levi.
Such a cutie.
Levi.
Well, if Levi and Lucy met, I'm sure they'd be fast friends.
Probably.
Yeah.
So Levi has a title. What is it?
What's Levi's title?
Sales and Entertainment is Levi's title.
Sales and Entertainment, yeah.
Does Levi outsell you?
Well, not as much anymore, but back in the day, in our early days, I would host in the farmhouse. That's where I would host the wine tastings. Now we have this beautiful atelier in the nearby town of Carlton, and that's where we host and share our wine. But it used to be in the house, and I had 2 dogs. I had Levi and Clementine, his mom, and they had dog tricks. Like people would come in for a tasting, and Clementine would come right up and be like, "Okay, I'm ready to do my tricks," and I wouldn't
Wow.
even have to say anything. She would just start rolling through them because she would lie down, she would play dead, she would roll over, she would sit up on her haunches, she would turn around, and she would close the door. And so all of these tricks she would do in quick because she would get treats. So whenever people would come for a tasting, there was always dog tricks. So that was
Yeah,
why
if
they
I
got
can get
sales
Lucy
and
to close,
entertainment.
if I can get Lucy to close the door downstairs when she comes in, that would be helpful. But she leaves it wide open. In the summer, it's no biggie. I leave the
Yeah,
door open in the summer, but in the winter, don't really want to heat outside.
yeah,
No.
yep.
So back to this Syrah. This is very, very good. And I think this is a huge treat that we get to have this, and that your customers get a little treat, with
Yeah,
this
this
Syrah.
this wine really begs for food. When you leave this recording room, I would go right upstairs and get yourself some cheese. And if you have any cheddar in your fridge, I
We do.
love this. I love this wine with cheddar. It just
Okay.
there's
With
something about the sweetness of cheddar that really binds up the wine and lets you enjoy all the fruit sweetness.
How about blue
So,
cheese with this?
no.
Not blue cheese.
I don't know. I like it with cheddar, but you should try it and then send me a text later tonight
We're gonna
and be
send you
like,
all
Claire,
sorts
you were
of.
wrong.
I would just
Maybe
say,
maybe if the blue cheese was on a little toast and had some bacon and some dried
oh boy,
cherries, then
you guys
maybe
are
blue cheese.
both ganging up on me with this
Uh-uh.
food talk. Jeez, Shelley, I'm looking at you
Why?
because you said we have all these questions,
I was
and
looking for a question. I thought you were going to ask one.
no, I'm looking at you, kid.
Da, 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 da. Okay, let's see that. I think
Yes.
a typical day on the farm. What is your typical day on the farm?
I'm gonna need to pour a little bit more wine for this.
Um, well, my husband and I go for a morning walk every day. So I get up and he sits in bed and has his coffee, and I go downstairs and meditate and do my yoga. And then we go for a walk, and we walk 3 miles up to the top of our canyon and back. And that is really important. And we do that every single day
Oh, that's
because
really
we
good.
run a business together and we don't talk on the way up. We just be quiet and take our space. And then it's kind of a meeting. We talk about our staff, we talk about our goals, we talk about what we're doing for that
So
day.
good.
We argue, we try to make up from the fight the night before, whatever. Um, so that morning walk happens, and then I do chores. And chores are to feed sheep, put the goats out, feed the horses, clean the horse stall, feed the cows if they're not out on pasture, feed the chickens, get everybody's water maintained. And depending on the time of year, that can take anywhere from 40 minutes to an hour and a half.
Mm.
Um, and then from there, I typically will either Zoom right into Carlton if I'm hosting wine tastings, or I'll sit myself down at the big table and answer emails and just slog
Hmm.
through some work things. Um, Usually there's some random farm project that I need to do that's outside. And if it's in the winter, I don all of my rain gear and rubber boots and go out and, move a pasture or do whatever needs to be done. Um, and so I do all the farm work. Brian will help from time to time on a few projects. And I sometimes will get a local football player who will come out once a week and help me move some fence or do something. But for the most part, I am doing all the care and feeding of all of those animals we talked about.
That's a
Um,
lot of work.
and
Yep.
yeah, it's good
Those
though.
are the pink and blue
Keep
chores.
Pink and blue chores. That's right.
pink and blue chores. Yeah, it's true. I probably do more blue chores, and Brian arguably does more traditionally pink chores. Like he does all the bookkeeping, he does the grocery shopping, and unless it's during harvest, he cooks more than I do.
Mm.
Um, I do the laundry though. Anyway, but and then during harvest, I do all the cooking because he's totally focused in the winery. And I gave you guys that little booklet. There's another one that's similar to it with different recipes. I'm actually working on a cookbook.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this has got some great recipes in it.
I need to try that quiche.
Yeah, well, and I mentioned the what was it?
the butternut squash.
The butternut squash,
which
yeah.
we love.
The butternut
That
squash
recipe. So some of the recipes in that book have been tested because I've been published a few times in various magazines. So I had about 6 recipes published in Food and Wine magazine and another tranche that got published in Sunset magazine. And when they published my recipes, they tested them in their kitchens. So that butternut squash recipe got tested in the Sunset magazine kitchen. So it's my recipe, but you'll notice the quiche recipe has not been tested, and it's clear like this is not a complete recipe. It's more like a suggestion. And if you don't know how to make a quiche, don't use that recipe. Like go online and Google a few recipes and then use my recipe in addition. But the butternut squash recipe is a real recipe, and it's been tested, and it's got all the steps. And there's a real art to writing good recipes that will give you very consistent results. So anyway, there you go.
Well, guess what, Shelley?
What?
We're going to take one last break.
Are we out of time?
Well, we're never out of time as far as I'm concerned.
I don't think she finished her farm day.
Yeah. Oh, did you not finish your farm day?
No, not at all.
No. Before we started, you mean, I thought you meant today. But I was talking about my farm day. Right. Yeah. Well, today, I'm just going to go off on a tangent. When I came home to do this recording, I went and brought my horses in and put them in because when we're done recording, I'm going to go for a quick ride.
Good for you.
Because the sunlight is still high in the sky. So I am going to do that. But let's see. So I will host a wine tasting. I might interface with some vineyard guys on something in the vineyard. And then there's evening chores, and that's bringing animals in, doing all the same morning chores things in the evening. Today, I had a distributor phone call at 10 a.m., a Zoom, where we were talking about allocations and sales and what wines they have in the market. And they want me to come to the market to meet some of the accounts. And so I acquiesced and said yes, because I've never been to their market.
What market was
that? It was Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana.
Wow.
And I've been with Skurnick there for a year and a half. And so I need to go and
Will you do wine dinners and things like that?
I might. I haven't really thought it through yet. Usually, if I'm going to take the time to go to a market, I will do a dinner.
Sure.
Because then it kind of, then it sort of financially makes sense for me because I get to see my customers as well as do the wholesale touches. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Makes sense. And of course, Big Table Farm, you're coming from a perspective of food as well. So you've got that where many wineries don't get to play on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and then it's just dinner with my husband and I fall into bed. Sometimes we'll watch some Netflix on the couch, but that's about it. But typically my days, they're probably where you could say I'm working, whether it's on farm work or Big Table Farm related work. It's easily 12-hour day.
Wow.
But it's so varied that that makes it sound like, it's so hard. It's not. I mean, doing the chores and taking care of the animals it brings me so much joy. So, and it keeps me young and fit. Yeah.
Well,
it's kind of like the blue zones because you get your exercise in the things you do in your daily life.
A 12-hour day, if you were sitting at your computer all day, a minute, an hour after that's a different thing. But what you're doing is
Wait,
you've
I have
got
a question for Shelley. Shelley, you just said it keeps you in the blue zone. Do you practice yoga? Is that
No, I mean I can't really do yoga because I have a vestibular issue, so I'm dizzy a lot. But no, I'm talking about the blue zones in the world, like Loma
oh
Linda,
yeah,
California,
yeah.
where they live longer, up into their 90s and 100s. So
Oh,
there's
okay.
one in
Okay.
Greece, there's one in Japan, in Southern
Got it.
California, oddly enough. But
Got it.
I've been studying what they eat and what they do to live healthier longer, not just longer, but healthier longer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of their exercise, they don't go to the gym. A lot of their exercise is built into what they do on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it. That's why
Yeah.
Brian's never going to have a membership to a fitness center because he's working those whole clusters down,
Yeah.
and trying to hide from the camera that Claire set up in there so she can watch that back.
That's right. Baby's got back.
Before I get slapped from Shelley, I am going to go to our last break. And when we come back, we're going to wrap this up. Oh, and I'm going to ask about Laverne and Shirley.
Oh, yeah, you haven't.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap it up.
Welcome back to Wine Time Fridays. We're going to be really fast here because we're keeping Clare Carver from Horseback Ride. She's with Big Table Farm. Her and her husband put this together, and it's quite an undertaking. When we had this Pinot Noir from Willamette Valley, you will notice on the label, for those of you watching on YouTube, there are 2 pigs on the front. And Claire, you mentioned you do name your animals there. That is Laverne and Shirley, is it not?
It is. It is. I always get female pigs from this particular breeder. So every spring I get 2 girls, and I just like to have fun with the names. I mean, pigs have so much personality, and yeah, we've had all kinds of names, but yeah, Laverne and Shirley was just a fun name, and I'm 52, and so I definitely watched Laverne and Shirley, and I can like hear their little song in my head when I
Little
think of those
song.
pigs. Yeah. But yeah, those are American guinea hogs. That's the breed. Those 2 girls are not sisters, but they're somewhat related. Um, and they that the nickname for that breed is the Homestead Hog, and they live in a little pasture right outside the farmhouse. So it's really conveniently situated from my kitchen. So I can just walk out of the kitchen and give them a scrap bowl. And so most of their food, they really don't get very much grain at all. They get a little bit of grain when I first bring them
Sure.
to the farm because there's not as many things happening yet. But once we get into late spring, summer, and certainly into fall, um, it's pretty much just scraps out of my farm kitchen that they're eating. And then once we get into August, they start converting onto fruit, because we have all of these gorgeous apple and pear trees right around the house. So there's sort of pre-fall fruit that the trees naturally just let go of. You
Right.
guys keep trees, so you know this. So I start feeding that right away to the pigs, and then all just that goes all the way through November, and they're basically finished on the felled fruit as well as some hazelnuts. So
Hazelnuts,
they
yeah.
do make some beautiful prosciutto. There's a recipe in that book I sent you for a peach prosciutto pizza.
Yes.
That is,
Yes.
yeah, that is a
So
really nice pairing, and goes very well with the 2023 Pinot Noir, because I literally, yeah,
what
it's
is
that.
what is
Go
this
ahead.
thing called? I know a friend of mine, she orders
That's
one of these every year.
it's a prosciutto stand.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
awesome. Okay.
yeah, yeah. You can
That's
order it
very cool.
online. I mean,
Yeah.
some people get really fancy ones. I don't, that
Oh,
one,
look at
I've
that.
had that one for like 18 years. So back in the day, I didn't have enough money to buy fancy gourmet accoutrement. So I'm sure it was like $19 or something.
Wow, and
So
it's
yeah,
stood the test of time.
I like
yeah.
the way your accent changes when you say certain words.
Did you study French in high school by any chance?
I did, but I did not retain anything. My French teacher in high school, um, didn't bathe, which I know is a
European thing.
like a European thing, but she was really special. Like she took it to the next level, and I seriously think it affected my ability to learn from this woman. I just
Oh my
like I
gosh.
would go into that room, and I was like, I just can't handle it. Anyway, I really didn't.
Can we crack a window today?
We would ask her. We'd be like, Madam Brookheim, can we please open a window? And she'd be like, no, it's cold outside. And we're like, oh God, it smells so bad in here. Anyway, I hope she's no longer of this earth and never hears me say what I just said, because that's mean. But anyway, there you go.
Well, her name may make it in the show notes if I can learn how to pronounce it. I wanted to say some of the wines that we had this week was a Rivora Merlot, a Tolani El Paso Toscana, Akiashi Chardonnay from California, the Great Oregon Wine Company Chardonnay. That should be a little bit more familiar to you there, Claire, even though they're making large quantities. And the Oeil, can you do this?
Oeil le Méditerranée.
Yeah. I don't know.
Anura Chardonnay.
Anura Chardonnay. Hasn't been one of our favorites, by the way. We'll have a Chardonnay every day in this house.
Good.
We really do. Somebody that I recently spoke to said we are
ABC?
No. Well, I mean, basically, they said it's against our religion to have Chardonnay. And I just like to each their own. I will say this. Next week, Claire, does the name Bells Up mean anything to you?
Oh, yes. Wonderful people. Yeah. And a really neat site. It's Chehalem Mountains, right? Isn't it considered Chehalem Mountains?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. That'll be awesome. Please send them my regards. Yeah.
We will absolutely do that. Again, we are in Oregon Wine Month, but it's also Aussie Wine Month.
That's true.
Oh.
Yeah. So the 3rd of May is International Sauvignon Blanc Day, which is tomorrow, by the way. 9th is World Moscato Day. 16th, International, I'm not even saying that. 17th is Pinot Grigio. 21st, World Chardonnay. And the 23rd is also a Chardonnay Day. Don't know why they get 2 other than maybe because
it's Chardonnay.
It's Chardonnay. There you go.
There's
and
a lot
then
of it.
on the 25th, the anniversary of the Judgment of Paris, which we always want to honor, just because it brought West Coast wines to the world attention, I guess. So there you go.
Yes, absolutely.
Huge thanks to today's sponsors, Rivora, J. Bookwalter, and 3D Cabinets by Design. Claire, you need to get on a horse. I mean, I say that with full love and appreciation. But just want to thank you for spending some time with us today.
A long time. Thank you.
Very, very much. It's very gracious of you. And thanks to the listeners that are listening. And with a little bit of knowledge, wine becomes a lot less overwhelming. And so does farming. Because we talked a lot about farming today. This is fantastic. I really enjoyed this. Thank you for listening. Claire, thank you again. And we'll see you next week with Bells Up. Speaking of bells.
Aw. Cheers, you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you for spending part of your day to wind down with Shelley and Phil. Remember, you can listen to any episode of the Wine Time Fridays podcast by visiting winetimefridays.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us on our Wine Time Fridays Facebook page, Instagram, or on Twitter, which is @VintageTweets, for daily conversation. Until next week, here's our toast to you. To health, wealth, abundance, gratitude, peace on earth, and of course, romance.